The shuttle's descent was a brutal, bone-rattling plunge, a metal coffin hurling itself through a sky that didn't want it. Inside, the air was a sour stew of sweat, fear, and the metallic bite of ozone leaking from the overtaxed filtration system. My hands clamped around the harness straps, knuckles whitening as the craft bucked and screamed against the planet's toxic atmosphere. Around me, 19 other prisoners, men hardened by desperation or broken by it, sat in a silence thick enough to choke on. A few muttered prayers, lips trembling. Others spat curses at the guards or the universe itself. Most just stared ahead, hollow-eyed, as if they'd already surrendered. I didn't pray, never saw the point, but when the shuttle punched through the cloud cover and the planet came into view below, I couldn't stop the ragged whisper that slipped out, a plea to any deity bored enough to listen. The surface was a fever dream of black peaks stabbing upward, their slopes tangled with forests of thorny, luminescent vines that glowed with a disturbing green light. Rivers snaked through the terrain, shimmering with molten hues of silver and violet, their beauty a lie that promised agony to anyone who dared touch them. "Welcome to your reprieve," the guard at the front barked through the intercom, his voice a staticky rasp laced with mockery. "Your second chance, ladies, don't waste it." A laugh clawed its way out of my throat, bitter and sharp. Second chance. This was a death sentence with extra steps, a cruel joke wrapped in bureaucratic ribbon. The courts called it mercy, banishment instead of execution, but no one came back from this rock. No one was supposed to. The shuttle hit the ground hard, a jolt that slammed my teeth together and sent a spike of pain up my spine. The harnesses clicked open and the guards were on us, shouting, shoving, their rifles glinting under the dim red light filtering through the haze. We spilled out onto the landing pad and the air hit me like a fist, hot, acrid, thick with a chemical sting that seared my lungs. I yanked the filtration mask over my face, fumbling with the straps. It was a battered thing, wheezing with every breath, patched together from scraps, but it kept the worst of the poison out. Barely. The penal colony stretched out ahead, a grim sprawl of rust-eaten barracks and crooked towers, ringed by a fence topped with coils of razor wire. Beyond it, the forest stood, swaying faintly. In the distance, the mountains hulked against the horizon, their peaks shrouded in a haze that swallowed the sky. "Move it, scum!" A guard's rifle butt jabbed my ribs and I stumbled forward, falling into line with the others. My legs ached from the cramped journey, my stomach a tight knot of hunger. But food wasn't on the table yet. First, I needed to figure this place out, what it was, who ran it, and how to survive it. The barracks were a furnace of stale air and body odor. Bunks lined the space, packed tight, each a slab of metal with a mattress so thin it might as well have been a roomer. I claimed one in the corner, back against the wall, eyes on the room. Old habits from older cages. The other prisoners shuffled in, a gallery of hard faces and harder stories. Some were built like bulls, their arms corded with muscle, scars crisscrossing their skin like maps of violence. Others were leaner, twitchy, their eyes skittering across the room. A few stood out, killers plain as day with eyes that held nothing alive behind them. One caught my attention, though. He was smaller than most, wiry, with a face like a knife. Sharp cheekbones, a thin mouth, and eyes that glinted under a mop of tangled hair. His clothes hung loose, but he moved with a coiled grace, every step deliberate, like a cat picking its way through a junkyard. He saw me watching and smirked, a flash of teeth that didn't touch the coldness in his stare. "Like what you see." His voice was a gravelly hiss, cutting through the noise of the room. I kept my face blank, shrugging. "Just figuring out who's who." He laughed, a dry scrape of sound. "Smart man. Half these fools won't make it to the next rotation." "And you will?" The smirk stretched wider, showing stained teeth. "I've got a talent for not dying." I believed him. There was something feral about him, a raw edge that promised trouble. Or maybe an edge I could use. I filed him away for later. The guards droned through a half-assed briefing. Rules, schedules, work details. It was noise, meaningless. The real laws here weren't written down. They were carved in blood and bartered in whispers. Strength ruled. Cunning kept you breathing. Weakness was a one-way ticket to the dirt. When the guards cleared out, the room shifted. Men gravitated together, forming knots of muttered alliances. I stayed apart, watching. The wiry one, Slyke, someone called him, slid through the crowd like oil through water, trading quiet words, sizing up the others. Building something, maybe. Or picking his prey. I didn't care about his games yet. Survival was my focus, and that meant learning the colony's pulse, its threats, its rhythms. The guards were bastards, sure, but the planet itself was the real enemy. I'd heard the tales. Air that ate your lungs, water that melted your guts, creatures in the wild that didn't die easy. And then there were the rumors. Something else out there, something that tracked us, something inherently twisted. A chill prickled my skin and I shook it off. Ghost stories wouldn't keep me alive. I needed facts, and that meant getting out there, talking to the ones who'd lasted. I stretched out on the bunk, one eye cracked, tracking the room. Slyke was still at it, weaving his web. He glanced my way once and I held his stare, steady, unflinching. He gave a tiny nod. Respect, maybe, and moved on. Sleep should have come, but the air was too dense, the sounds too alien. The groan of metal settling, the low mutter of voices, a distant wail that didn't sound right. Too sharp to be wind or beast. My mind churned, dragging up the past. Faces, fights, the blood that landed me here. Regret was a useless weight, though. I shoved it down, locked it away. Focus, that's what I needed. The barracks quieted as the others drifted off, their breathing ragged and uneven. I stayed awake, ears straining. And then I heard it. A rhythmic scratching, like nails dragging across metal, rising from under the floor. I bolted upright, pulse hammering. I scanned the room. Nobody stirred. Either they didn't hear it, or they'd learned to ignore it. I swung my legs off the bunk and palmed the shiv I'd made from a scrap, its edge crude but sharp. The scratching stopped, abrupt as a snapped thread. I waited, grip tight on the shiv, every muscle taut. Nothing moved. After a minute, I eased back onto the bunk, weapon still in hand. Could have been the structure groaning or some vermin burrowing. But my gut said different. Something was down there, aware. Sleep never came after that. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the shiv a cold anchor, wondering how deep this pit really went. The next morning broke with a dull red glow seeping through the haze. No sun, just a smear of light that barely qualified as day. They marched us out for work, past the fence into the forest, where the air thickened and the glow of the vines painted everything in shades of poison. The mines waited, dark gashes in the mountainside, their mouths exhaling a damp metallic reek. The guards tossed us tools, pickaxes, shovels, rusted and heavy, and pointed us at a vein of shimmering ore. "Dig!" one grunted, then leaned back to watch us break ourselves against the rock. I swung the pickaxe, felt the jolt up my arms as it bit into stone. The ore resisted, clinging like it was alive, and sweat burned my eyes, soaking the mask until it rasped with every breath. My body protested, but I kept going. Stopping wasn't an option, not with the guards itching for an excuse. Slyke worked nearby, methodical, silent. His swings were precise, wasting no energy, his face set in focus. I respected it. He didn't bitch or posture, just did the job, a survivor's instinct. The hours bled together, the red light stretching shadows into claws among the trees. The forest hummed with life, rustling, snapping, cries that echoed too long. I tried to tune it out, but the unease stuck, a splinter in my mind. At a break, I sidled up to an older prisoner, a grizzled wreck with one milky eye and a leg that dragged. He sat on a boulder, sipping from a dented canteen, staring at nothing. "How long you been here?" I kept my voice casual. He turned his good eye on me, squinting. "Long enough to stop counting." "What's out there?" I nodded toward the trees. Heard something last night, under the floor. He snorted, a wet, broken sound. You'll find out, or you won't. Luck decides. That's vague as hell. Truth ain't specific. He shrugged, took another sip. Keep your head down. Work, and maybe you'll see a few more dawns. A guard's yell cut me off before I could push him further. Move it! I went back to the oar, irritation simmering. He wasn't wrong. Knowing might not change a damn thing. But ignorance wasn't a shield either. I needed more. The heat climbed, turning the air into a swamp. My mask clogged with dust, and every breath was a fight. Fatigue gnawed at me, but I swung harder, defiance keeping me upright. My pickaxe slipped, skidding off the rock with a burst of sparks. I staggered back, cursing, and saw a glowing thread, thin and blue, oozing from the crack I'd made, inching toward the light. I stared, caught by its strange beauty, and reached out. Slyke's hand clamped my wrist, hard. Don't touch it, he snapped, voice tight. I jerked free but kept my distance. The filament slid back into the stone, gone like a dream. What was that? Slyke's face was ashen, his eyes sharp. Don't know. Seen it before, though. Scratching under the barracks, moving. The chill hit me again, deeper this time. Not imagination then, something real, alive. The whistle blew and we trudged back, battered and silent. Passing the fence, I glanced at the forest, the mountains, their secrets pressing against me like a weight. That night, on my bunk, the shiv back in my hand, that glowing filament haunted me. It was mesmerizing, alien, and wrong in a way I couldn't name. Whatever it was part of this place, woven into its bones. I didn't sleep. I waited, listening, knowing I'd meet it again. And when I did, I'd be ready, or as ready as this hell would let me be. The red dawn came too fast, a bruise of light smearing across the sky as they hauled us out again. My muscles ached, stiff from a night spent gripping the shiv, ears straining for that scratching to return. It didn't, but the quiet felt heavier for it, like the planet was holding its breath, waiting to spit something worse my way. I dragged myself off the bunk, mask already strapped tight, and fell into line with the others. The guards didn't bother with words this time, just waved their rifles and marched us back to the mines. The forest stood ahead, its thorny vines swaying slow, their blue glow staining the ground beneath. I kept my eyes on them as we passed, half expecting that filament to slither out again. It didn't, but the memory of it lingered. Not the real threat, I told myself, just a signpost, pointing to something uglier hiding in the dirt. Work was the same grind. Swing the pickaxe, crack the stone, haul the ore. My arms moved on instinct, but my mind chewed over Slyke's warning. He'd seen it before, he said, moving. That meant it wasn't static, wasn't just some weird plant or mineral vein. It had intent. I glanced at him across the pit, his wiry frame hunched as he chipped away at the rock. He didn't look my way, but I'd catch him later. He knew more than he was letting on. The day stretched long, the sky staying that dull red, like blood drying on a blade. Sweat stung my eyes, soaking through my shirt until it clung like a second skin. The other prisoners kept their distance, either too tired to start trouble or sizing me up for later. I didn't care which. I'd deal with them when the time came. It was mid-shift when the first scream ripped through the air, not a yell, but a raw, shredded sound that froze my swing mid-arc. Everyone stopped, heads snapping toward the forest. The guards straightened, rifles swinging up, their faces tight behind visors. The scream came again, closer, then cut off sharp, swallowed by the trees. What the hell was that? I muttered, gripping the pickaxe tighter. Slyke sidled up, his voice low and clipped. Trouble. Keep your eyes open. Before I could press him, a guard barked, "Back to work, nothing to see." But his tone was off, too quick, too thin. He didn't believe it either. The rest of the shift passed in a tense quiet. Nobody talked, but the air carried a charge, like static before a storm. When the whistle finally blew, we trudged back to the barracks, the guards' drones hovering closer than usual, their lenses glinting red. Dinner was a grey slop shoveled into dented trays, some kind of protein paste, gritty and sour, probably synthesized from the planet's minerals. I forced it down, sitting alone at a table near the wall. Slyke slid onto the bench across from me, tray untouched, his sharp eyes scanning the room before settling on me. "All right," I said, keeping my voice low. "Spill it. What's with the glowing filament?" He leaned in, elbows on the table, his smirk gone. "Noticed it my first week, scratches under the floor. Then I saw one, thin, blue, sliding out of a crack in the mines. Thought it was alive at first, but it's more like a root. Part of something bigger." "Bigger how?" He tapped his temple. "Heard whispers after that. Not words, just urges. Pushy ones. Took me a day to shake it off." I frowned, the slop turning to lead in my gut. "You saying it messes with your head?" "Maybe, or maybe I'm cracked already." He grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Point is, it's not the worst thing out here. That scream, that's what you should worry about." "Something's hunting us," I said, half guessing. "Something's eating us," he corrected. "Found a body last rotation. New guy. Gut strung out like rope, skull hollowed clean. Guard said it was a fall. Bullshit. No fall does that." I sat back thinking. A predator then. Something tied to the filament, maybe juiced up by it. I pictured it. Claws, teeth, that blue glow seeping from its hide. My grip tightened on the tray's edge. "Why do you want me off it?" "'Cause I've seen men touch it. They go quiet after, then they're gone, disappeared or dead." I nodded, filing that away. "You've lasted how long?" 3 rotations, long enough to know you don't poke what you can't kill. Yet here you are talking to me." He shrugged, a flicker of that smirk returning. "You don't look like the type to die easy. Might be useful." I snorted, but he wasn't wrong. I didn't trust him, but he'd given me a thread to pull. The next day they sent us deeper into the mines, past the usual veins into a tunnel that sloped down sharp, the walls slick with condensation that smelled of sulfur. My boots slipped on the stone, and I caught myself on the pickaxe, cursing under my breath. The guards stayed at the entrance, rifles ready. Didn't like that, meant they expected something. Slyke stuck close, his movements quieter now, eyes darting to every shadow. The tunnel narrowed, forcing a single file. I saw a shimmer along the wall, a cluster of those blue filaments threading through the rock like veins in a corpse. They didn't move, just sat there, glowing steady and cold. "Don't," Slyke hissed as my hand twitched toward them. "Wasn't gonna," I lied, but I kept my distance. We worked in silence, hacking at a new seam of ore, the rhythm steadying my nerves. Then the ground trembled, not a quake, but a single heavy thud. Another followed, then a third, closer each time. The prisoners froze, tools clattering to the stone. "Guards!" someone yelled. But the entrance was empty. They'd bolted, leaving us in the dark. A shape stood at the tunnel's mouth, something solid, massive. It stepped forward, and the blue glow caught its edges, painting it in stark relief. A creature, tall as 2 men stacked, its body a knot of sinew and bone. Its hide glistened, wet and black, streaked with those filaments woven into its flesh, glowing bright where they broke the surface. Its head was a nightmare, flat and eyeless, with a maw that split wide, bristling with teeth that curved inward. Slyke grabbed my arm, yanking me back as it lunged. The tunnel erupted, men shouting, scrambling, the creature's claws raking stone with a sound like tearing metal. I swung my pickaxe, aiming for its leg, and the steel sank in, jarring my arms as it hit something tough beneath the skin. It didn't roar, just turned that eyeless face toward me, jaws snapping an inch from my mask. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. Slyke darted in, jamming his shovel under its jaw, forcing it up. "Go! Go!" he snarled, and I didn't argue. We bolted deeper into the tunnel, the others scattering or falling behind. Screams chased us, wet and short, as the thing tore through them. The tunnel split, and we veered left, ducking into a crevice barely wide enough to squeeze through. My chest burned, breath rasping through the mask. But I kept moving until we hit a dead end. A hollowed-out chamber, walls laced with more filaments. We pressed against the rock, listening. The thudding stopped, replaced by a guttural scrape, like it was dragging something heavy. Then silence. Thick and final. "What the hell was that?" I whispered, voice rough. Slyke's face was pale, his eyes locked on the tunnel. "Dunno, but it's not alone. Seen tracks, bigger ones." "Bigger?" I stared at him, the weight of that sinking in. "Yeah." He wiped sweat from his brow, grimacing. "And it's fast. We're lucky it didn't chase." "Lucky," I repeated. That thing was infected by the filament, juiced up into something meaner. And if there were bigger ones... I tightened my grip on the pickaxe, the chamber's glow reflecting off its scratched blade. Surviving the guards, the prisoners, the planet. That was one thing. This was another. Something hunted here. Something tied to those filaments, and it wasn't subtle about it. The chamber's glow stuck with me as we slipped back through the crevice. My pickaxe felt heavier now, its scratched blade a lifeline I couldn't let go of. Slyke moved ahead, silent but tense, his shovel slung over his shoulder like he expected to swing it any second. That creature, its wet black hide streaked with glowing veins, wasn't a fluke. "Bigger ones," he'd said. "Tracks." The thought churned in my gut, mixing with the memory of those screams. The men we'd left behind. We needed a plan, but first we needed to get out of this hole alive. The tunnel was quiet as we retraced our steps. No thuds, no scraping, just the faint drip of water somewhere deep. The others were gone, either dead or scattered, and the guards hadn't come back. Smart, maybe. Or cowards. Didn't matter. They'd left us to rot, and that was a debt I'd settle later. We hit the main shaft, the slope leveling out, and the forest's red light bled in from the entrance. Slyke stopped short, raising a hand. I froze, ears straining. Voices, low, urgent, drifted from outside, punctuated by the crack of a rifle. Then a shout, sharp and panicked, cut off mid-word. My grip tightened on the pickaxe. Trouble was waiting, and we were walking right into it. "Ready?" Slyke whispered, his eyes glinting in the gloom. "Always," I muttered, and we stepped out. The mining site was a mess. Bodies sprawled across the dirt. Some prisoners, some guards, their masks torn off, faces frozen in grimaces. Blood soaked the ground, dark and sticky, and a shredded torso hung from the vines near the fence, its ribs splayed wide, filaments threading through the flesh like they were stitching it back together. The glow was brighter now, a sickly blue that lit the scene stark and wrong. A handful of prisoners stood in a loose knot, shivs and tools raised, staring at the trees. The guards were retreating, drones buzzing overhead, their rifles spitting rounds into the shadows. I saw another creature, bigger than the last. Its bulk hunched as it dragged a guard's corpse towards the forest. Its limbs were thick, knotted with muscle, and those filaments ran through it like veins. It turned its flat head our way, jaws parting, and I caught a glimpse of something inside. Teeth, but also a tangle of tendrils, wriggling like they had a mind of their own. "Move!" I barked, shoving Slyke toward the survivors. We joined them, a ragtag line of sweat and steel, and the creature charged. Its claws gouged the earth, kicking up dust, and I swung the pickaxe hard, aiming for its shoulder. The blade sank in, jarring my arms, and a wet hiss sprayed from the wound. Not blood, but something thick and yellow, stinking of rot. It reared back, swiping at me, and I ducked, the claw whistling past my ear. Slyke drove his shovel into its flank, twisting it deep, and another prisoner slammed a rock into its skull. The thing staggered but didn't drop, its tendrils lashing out, snagging the burly guy's arm. He screamed as it yanked him close, jaws clamping down, and I heard the crunch of bone before he went limp. We ran for the barracks, the creature lumbering after us, slower now but relentless. The guards were gone, their drones circling uselessly, and the forest seemed to shift, vines swaying faster like they were waking up. Inside the barracks, chaos reigned. Prisoners shouted over each other, some barricading the doors, others clutching weapons or praying in corners. The air was hot and sour, thick with fear. I spotted Kessler, the scarred brute from day one, rallying a group near the bunks, his voice a growl. "Guards did this. Let those things loose. We take 'em down, we're free." "Bullshit!" I snapped, shoving through. "Guards are running too. Something's bigger than them out there." Kessler sneered, stepping close, his bulk towering. "You got a better idea, fresh meat?" "Yeah. Find who's running the show and choke the truth out of him." Slyke nodded beside me. "Lab's in the command post. That's where the answers are." The room split. Half followed Kessler toward the guard towers, shouting for blood. The rest fell in with us. The riot was on, a wave of violence crashing through the colony. We hit the command post hard, smashing through the gate with a stolen crate, shivs flashing as we cut down the few guards left. Their rifles barked, dropping a couple of hours, but we were too many, too pissed. I took a guard's arm with my pickaxe, twisting it free, and grabbed his rifle, the weight solid in my hands. The lab was a steel box inside, lined with screens and glass pods, a sharp tang of chemicals cutting through the sweat and dirt. A man stood at the center, tall, gaunt, his coat smeared with yellow stains, scribbling on a tablet like the world wasn't burning. Varn, the lead scientist, I'd heard his name whispered. He looked up as we stormed in, his eyes cold, unblinking. "You're too late," he said. "It's awake." "Who's awake?" I leveled the rifle at him, finger itching. He smiled. "The planet. You're just fuel." Slyke charged, but Varn was faster, ducking behind a pod. I fired, the shot shattering glass, and chaos erupted. Prisoners smashing equipment, Varn weaving through, a syringe in his hand, glowing yellow. I chased him, shoving past a toppled table, and tackled him against a wall. His elbow cracked my jaw, sharp pain flaring, and we grappled, the rifle pinned between us. I drove my knee into his gut, felt him grunt, but he twisted, his arm flailing. Something sharp grazed my neck, a nick, barely a sting, and I slammed his head into the steel, knocking him cold. "Gant!" Slyke yelled, pulling me off. My hand went to my neck, wet, a smear of yellow on my fingers. The syringe lay broken on the floor, half empty. My stomach dropped. "What the hell did he do?" "Don't know," I rasped, but my skin was already prickling, a heat spreading fast. I stumbled to Varn's tablet, snatched it up. Words blurred. Filament scouts, fungal network, collective mind, serum binds host. And then pain hit, a white-hot spike through my skull. I dropped to my knees, the room tilting, voices roaring in my head. "Get him out!" Slyke barked, hauling me up as the others torched the lab, flames licking the walls. My legs buckled, bones grinding under my skin, and I saw my arm, blisters forming, splitting, tendrils coiling out, thin and black. The rifle slipped from my hands, clattering loud in the haze. Outside, the riot raged, prisoners clashing with guards, creatures crashing through the fence, their jaws dripping yellow. My vision doubled, tripled, the network's chorus swelling. Feed, grow, command. I fought it, clawing at my own thoughts, but my body wasn't mine anymore. Slyke dragged me through the smoke, his grip iron, shouting something I couldn't hear over the din. We hit a clearing, the barracks burning behind us, and I collapsed, chest heaving. My hands weren't hands, claws now slick and sharp, and my voice came out wrong, a guttural snarl. "Slyke, run." He didn't. He stood there, pale but steady, watching me twist into something else. The network pressed harder, a tide I couldn't hold back, and I felt the creatures turn, their eyeless faces locking on me. Not prey anymore, something else. The clearing was a graveyard of smoke and ruin, the barracks a smouldering skeleton spitting embers into the red sky. My knees dug into the dirt, claws sinking deep, anchoring me as the world spun. The heat in my veins was a wildfire now, coursing through muscle and bone, reshaping me from the inside out. Tendrils writhed from my arms, black and slick, curling like they had their own ideas. My chest heaved, each breath a wet rasp through teeth that didn't fit my mouth anymore, sharp, too many crowding my jaw. I caught my reflection in a shard of glass nearby, eyes glowing blue, staring back from a face that wasn't mine. Slyke stood a few paces off. His sharp face was streaked with soot, eyes wide, locked on me. "Gant!" he said, voice low, like he was testing if I'd answer or bite. "You still in there?" I wanted to laugh, cackle really at the absurdity of it. But what came out was a guttural growl, rough and alien. "Barely," I managed, the words scraping past my throat. The network was loud now. Hunt, consume, expand. It wasn't pleading or commanding, it just was, a tide pulling me under. The creatures crashed through the wreckage, their filament-streaked bodies glinting in the firelight. 3, then 5, then more, lumbering out of the forest and the mines. Their eyeless heads swiveled, jaws gaping. They didn't charge, didn't scatter. They waited, and I felt it. A thread tying me to them, faint but real, like a twitch in my mind could tug them my way. "Slyke!" I rasped, forcing the words out. "Get out!" He didn't move, damn fool. "You're not gone yet. We can use this. Turn it on 'em." "Use this?" I lifted an arm, tendrils coiling, my skin splitting wider with every twitch. "I'm a freak show, not a weapon." "You're alive," he shot back, stepping closer. "That's more than most got." Alive, maybe. But the network didn't care about alive. It wanted more. I staggered to my feet, legs unsteady, longer than they should have been, joints popping as they settled into something new. The creatures shifted with me, a ripple through their ranks, and I felt that thread tighten. I focused hard, picturing them still. Stop. Hold. And they froze, claws mid-step, jaws slack. My head throbbed, a spike of pain behind my eyes, but it worked. They listened. "Hell!" Slyke muttered, almost a laugh. "You're running the show now." "Not by choice," I snarled, but he wasn't wrong. The network was in me, and I was in it. A two-way street I didn't ask for. I turned toward the ruins, the flames licking higher, screams fading as the last of the riot burned out. Prisoners and guards alike were meat now, scattered in pieces or fleeing into the forest where the vines would finish them. The colony was done, and I was its last gasp. Varn's tablet lay in the dirt where I'd dropped it, cracked but glowing. I scooped it up and scrolled. His notes spilled out. Serum amplifies neural link. Fungal core in mountain depths. Containment protocol failed. Off-world risk if unchecked. That hit hard. This wasn't just our hell. It could spread, a plague riding the next shuttle out. I saw shuttles in the distance, parked beyond the fence. Guard evac, probably. The network wanted them, wanted out, and I could feel its pull tugging me toward them. "No," I growled, shoving back. My voice echoed louder than it should have, and the creatures flinched. I focused again, picturing them moving. "Go. Tear it down." They surged, a tide of muscle and teeth, smashing through what was left. Towers, barracks, the lab's ashes. Metal crumpled, stone shattered, and I felt every blow like a jolt in my spine. My control was shaky, a fraying rope, but it held. Slyke watched, silent now, his smirk gone. "You're keeping it here," he said, not a question. "Someone has to," I said, my voice steadier, though it didn't sound like me anymore. "This thing gets off planet. It's over for everyone." He nodded slow, then glanced at the shuttles. "You're staying then?" "Got no choice." I flexed a claw. "This is me now." He didn't argue, just started walking, away from the shuttles, toward the mountains. "I'll stick around, see if we can carve something out of this mess." "Don't be stupid," I called after him, but he kept going, a wiry shadow against the red haze. Part of me wanted to drag him back, force him to run, but I didn't. He'd made his call, same as I had. The creatures finished their work, the colony a flattened scar, and I sent them after the shuttles next. They tore through steel and glass, engines sparking out, no chance of liftoff. The network pushed back, a hiss in my mind, but I held it, my will a thin blade against its weight. When the last shuttle crumpled, I felt it ease, a grudging retreat. Not beaten, just waiting. I climbed a broken tower, the highest point left, and crouched there, claws gripping the edge. My body was monstrous, tall, hunched, a patchwork of flesh and tendrils, but my head was still mine mostly. The creatures spread out below, a silent army, their blue glow dotting the wreckage like stars in a dead sky. Slyke was a speck now, vanishing into the trees, and I wondered if he'd make it, or if he'd turn into something like me. The whispers didn't stop, never would. They coiled in my thoughts, promising power, more worlds, more meat. I ignored them, staring out at the mountains, the forest, this toxic pit I'd claimed. I didn't want this throne, didn't ask for the crown of claws and eyes, but it was mine. I'd keep the network here, locked in this cage of a planet, even if it meant locking myself with it. King of nothing, maybe, but alive. I settled in, the glow of my eyes cutting through the haze, and waited for whatever came next. The planet was quiet, but I knew better. It was just biding its time, same as me.